How's it going, guys? We're going to do this 12-man draft. It's a way too early draft. So we're doing this draft on February the 1st. So the NFL draft has not happened yet. We don't know where these players are going to end up. I've got the 2-pick. Whole lot of players from my community are in this one. This is not a mock draft. We're playing for real money. It's a $5 draft. It's a best ball draft, meaning there's not going to be any transactions. You're going to draft a 18-round draft. If players get hurt, it's a war of attrition. We all take the same injury risk as everybody else. I think that these are way better than doing mock drafts for a simple reason. You do a mock draft, people do 1, maybe 2 rounds, and they log off. And you're drafting against a list for at least half of the players, if not more. So using this to develop your draft philosophy at a low dollar range, and we're drafting on Underdog Fantasy. Disclaimer is in the full disclosure is down in the description down below. But I think that the drafts here are a lot sharper, a lot more true to life, because players are going to pick other players based on reality and not some random craziness. Christian McCaffrey went 1 as expected. I think that Dalvin Cook is the very realistic number 2 pick here. I'm going to go off the reservation. I'm going to take Travis Kelce in this spot. I'm drafting Kelce usually as high as number 5. The earlier I draft, I'm more willing to take chances to get the guys that I want. And you say, well, you could have gotten Dalvin Cook there. You could have gotten one of the other running backs there, Alvin Kamara or Derrick Henry or Saquon Barkley. Assuming that Kelce should be fine. Like I said, everybody takes the same injury risk. I think the difference between Travis Kelce and every other player at that position is so drastic. We always talk about how deep tight end looks, but in a best ball league, having somebody you can lock in for 20 plus points basically every week is massive. So like I said, I would expect, especially with my community, that Travis Kelce was not going to last past 6. So is it a bit of a stretch for me? Sure. I also think that there's going to be running backs available in rounds 3, 4, 5, 6 that are very viable. So going with 0 running back in 2021 drafts isn't something that I think is just locked to the back end of the first round. If you're picking 7 through 12, I think that it's even viable from the middle of the round, 4, 5, 6, 7, than just picking like 10, 11, 12, like it was in previous years. So Racing Prez took Dalvin Cook, then Alvin Kamara goes at 4, Derrick Henry at 5. There's Tyreek Hill at 6. I think we could see a couple of running backs here. But also I think the back half, if you watched my way too early first round preview, players that I think are going to go 1 through 12, kind of feel like we're going to see a lot of wide receivers go in this spot, even though you're going to see on ADP. And Underdog's ADP, average draft position, that they list out here is very much updated every single day. I think Taylor at 8 is a big value there. Diggs, I think, is fine at the back end of the first round as well. How can you be upset with any of these picks? Barkley coming off of ACL, falling to 10, totally understandable. He's going as high as like 3 and as low as 12 in the drafts that I've seen. Are the Colts going to move up and draft a quarterback? Don't know. I think that you're going to see a lot of trades. A lot of quarterbacks are going to change hands this year. We're going to see a lot of different things happen. DeAndre Hopkins goes 11 to Deadhead. Gator Tom with the sandwich picks at the end of the first round. Going Eckler, half PPR. Underdog is half PPR. Not that Eckler's a bad pick in half PPR or full PPR. And DK Metcalf, one of my favorite players in the league as well. As I said, you're going to see a lot of wide receivers. So the first round goes McCaffrey, Kelce, Cook, Kamara, Henry, Hill, Adams, Taylor, Diggs, Barkley, Hopkins, and then Metcalf kicking off the second round. So 1, 2, 3, 4 wide receivers and 1 tight end. 5 pass catchers going in the first round. So to me, seeing how teams are going to build out their teams, or players are going to build out their teams in the, let's say, rounds 2 through 5, based on what they got in the first round, I think is going to be very interesting. You see some people who take a running back, the bell cow and chill method, As I said, it's like not full zero RB, but you take that guy that's just, I think he's going to get 300 to 350 touches, and then you pick the pass catchers after him. People are going to go zero RB. They're going to pick wide receivers or pass catchers in each of the first few rounds and eschew the running backs. You're going to see people go very running back heavy, robust running back, if you will. So BPV with Nick Chubb and Jonathan Taylor, two of the big play running backs. Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones, if Aaron Jones is still on Green Bay next year. Cam Akers going at 2.7. Tyreek Hill and Cam Akers. Big volume for Cam Akers down the stretch this season as he got more acclimated to the McVay offense, as he got healthy, which was something that he was not for a lot of the season. DeAndre Swift, somebody I'm particularly high on, at least versus the field going to OT. Josh, Derrick Henry, and DeAndre Swift. Parking Martian, Racing Prez, and then I'm up at 211. So I've got a couple of picks coming, and I can't really queue players because, you know, we're drafting this live on Twitch, and like people, I don't want to influence where people might be thinking, well, Al's put this player in queue, so like I kind of have to do a thing. Like, I don't want people picking against me. I want people picking their teams because that makes the best content for you watching on YouTube. I don't want people adjusting for what I'm doing. I want people drafting their teams for what they think is the best draft for their team, so we can move forward. Justin Jefferson, rookie sensation, going at 2.9. AJ Brown, grown man. I could go running back here. The wide receivers that I like, I don't really think are viable in this spot. J.K. Dobbins and James Robinson would be the two that I think are the most viable. Robinson with a regime change. Dobbins, I think, is going to take over a lot of the work in year 2. And I don't think they're going to draft over his head either with Ingram going away. Hopefully he can get 65, maybe 70% of the work at running back, even though 70% seems lofty in that Baltimore offense, especially with the possibility of Lamar Jackson running the ball a lot. But the running back there in Baltimore has done very well. Hopefully he gets more than 15 carries. He was so explosive down the stretch last season. I'm hoping for 20 touches a game for J.K. Dobbins in 2021. The Walrus going at 12.2 to pair with CMC for the Chase family. Next pick coming up here. Now I'm going to have to wait for my next pick to come all the way back to me, right? And I'll get 2 at that next spot. Running back and wide receiver are exceptionally deep going into these 2021 drafts, just because there's just so much young talent position. James Robinson going there. Josh Jacobs, what the Raiders did last year. Antonio Gibson, I think, takes a big step forward in terms of volume. I am hoping that the WFT gets a competent quarterback in this spot, which would, I think, boost him. But because this draft is so early, I'm usually a wait on quarterback sort of guy. But I'm going to go Patrick Mahomes at 3.2. I know what I'm getting in this spot. I've got Mahomes, Kelsey, J.K. Dobbins. As I said, I think there are plenty of running backs for me to get 3 solid running backs. And then I can fill out wide receivers, as I believe that wide receiver is very deep. I've got to wait 22 picks to get to that spot. So we'll monitor what everybody else does in these spots here. But kind of looking at wide receiver, after 2 rounds are done, Michael Thomas still on the board with an ADP of 28. Keenan Allen. Allen Robinson, if he leaves Chicago and goes somewhere else with a better quarterback situation, could absolutely blow up. Both of the Tampa Bay wide receivers still on the board. Terry McLaurin, Amari Cooper down at 42. CeeDee Lamb, Julio Jones, Adam Thielen, one of the league leaders in end zone targets last season, as an ADP of 46. DJ Moore, Deontay Johnson with his 10 targets pretty much every game that he was healthy this year. There's just so much talent at wide receiver. Look, all the way down here, Cooper Kupp with an ADP of 59. Juju Smith-Schuster a 68. Will Fuller, will he stay in Houston, or is he going to go somewhere as a free agent? Looking at the running backs that are available, Antonio Gibson still on the board with an ADP of 26. Miles Sanders. Joe Mixon last year was a back half of the first round, going 6 through 12 on average last season. Has an ADP of 31. Travis Etienne and Najee Harris. The 2 rookies in this draft, we'll have to see where they end up. after the draft. David Montgomery was a league winner down the stretch, but that was more based on opponents. He had kind of the softest schedule leading into the playoffs with games against Jacksonville and Houston. All these teams just got shredded by opposing running backs, and he did the work too. So you can't really take much away from him and say, well, it was just this or just that. He ripped up every one of those matchups. So as I said, we're late in the third round, and you've still got names like Mixon, the two rookies, Montgomery, Chris Carson, AJ Dillon, in the case that Jones leaves, would be a lead back. There's plenty of running backs available this year, and I went through the wide receivers as well. I think that the positional scarcity at tight end is very real. So looking at the third round, since we're almost done with it, James Robinson, I went with Patrick Mahomes in the third. I typically wait for quarterback, but I will pay up. I think that mid-round quarterback is more of a viable strategy in best ball now, with all of the unicorn running type quarterbacks that are available in those mid-rounds. Going quarterback in round 5 through 7 for my primary quarterback in best ball. If it was season long where there's transactions, I'd probably wait longer. But in best ball, I think having one of those guys like a Josh Allen, like a Kyler Murray, like a Lamar Jackson, a Deshaun Watson, in the ranges that they're being drafted most often, give you that extra rushing floor every week to be a viable. You want to have 20 plus points out of your quarterback every single week in best ball. That's just kind of the way that it goes. So it's a little bit of a different animal from transactional leagues, from season long leagues. And knowing where you're going is key. Also, building out your stacks, also key. So Josh Allen here at the 4-4 pick, he paired him with Stephon Diggs. Building your team stacks is very important. Josh Allen, Antonio Gibson, Steph Diggs, and Calvin Ridley is just a sick start when you kind of look at these teams, right? It's like, I'm just telling you that 2021 fantasy football just feels so much deeper than previous seasons. Last year, I was saying that wide receiver was so very deep that picking one or two running backs early in best ball drafts in the first 3 rounds, and then filling out with those round 3 through 5 wide receivers, 3 through 7 wide receivers, the guys that I was ending up with a lot, Terry McLaurin, DK Metcalf, we were getting in the 6th and 7th round. We were getting Will Fuller to go with our Watson stacks. I was getting Watson in the 5th. Who was I getting? I was getting Watson in the 5th, Fuller in the 6th, Cooks in the 7th. Building out those stacks that way is extremely, extremely solid. Kyler Murray going here to CGV. Tyreek Hill, he's going with kind of a KC stack with Cam Akers and now Kyler Murray. I think that Kyler Murray was on the right side of variance, let's say. Touchdown rushing touchdowns for quarterbacks can be extremely streaky and fluky. So having guys that have a season like he was having last year, I think that his rushing touchdowns come down kind of the way that Lamar Jackson's rushing touchdowns came down, but that's a whole other end. The rushing floor with the yards is still going to be there pretty much all the time with Kyler Murray. I'm going to go CeeDee Lamb here or Chris Godwin. A lot of mouths to feed here. Chris Godwin's fine too. I'm going to go with CeeDee Lamb, go with the younger guy at 4'11". Year 2 wide receivers do tend to take a leap. He disappeared after they lost Dak. I'm of the mindset that Dak should be ready for preseason this year and ready for the season to start with his broken leg. We'll see if I'm right or wrong. It's super early in the offseason. Could have gone with Chris Godwin there. DJ Moore, also somebody that I think is extremely talented, but CeeDee Lamb is potentially a beast and on a very good offense when Dak is the guy who's under center. Now, coming back here, we've got Travis Etienne finishing off the 4th round. As I said, running back is very deep. You can clearly get guys who are superstars at that position still. Kareem Hunt, Carson, Dillon, Gaskin at 69. Nice, his ADP. 3 running backs for Chase family. I assume he's going to start going with some pass catchers here, unless he's going to go very robust at running back, thinking that wide receiver is very deep. And there it is, Chris Godwin going there. That leaves me with DJ Moore or Deontay Johnson. I think that DJ Moore is an absolute talent. If they can improve this quarterback situation with the amount of catches, amount of targets, and his talent level, the touchdowns just haven't materialized. I think that that can very easily correct itself moving forward with the amount of targets that I project him to get, especially if Curtis Samuels leaves. So DJ Moore for me to kick off the 5th round, starting my team with Mahomes, Dobbins, Lamb, Moore, Travis Kelce, and then we'll watch what happens here. Let's take a look at the 4th round to let the 5th kind of fill out. Started with David Montgomery, then Terry McLaurin, Julio Jones, Josh Allen, Evans, Thielen, Murray, Cooper, Higgins, Woods, Lamb, Etienne. Woods going first out of those 2 wide receivers on the Rams. It's going to be interesting to see where Stafford goes in, if he goes to a team that picked Woods or Cup or both, building out stacks, as you will. To me, the choice was between Deontay Johnson and DJ Moore in that spot. Herbert going in the 5th might be a little bit early for him, taking him over one of these other 2, but he was a superstar last year. He's going to continue to be really good moving forward, especially with the talent that they have there on Los Angeles. But and he can move, though he is not a running quarterback, right? He's not somebody who's going to give you a floor of rushing yards, but he will luck box his way into the end zone every now and again. Brandon Ayuk going at 5'6". Lamar Jackson now in the 3rd on the board in terms of ADP of remaining players. Cooper Kupp going to UZen. Devontae Adams, Adam Thielen, Cooper Kupp, Aaron Jones, Miles Sanders. Very solid start there. A very simple way to think about going about your drafts, if you wanted to simplify. Pick 10 players. Let's say 8, just to be conservative. Pick 8 running back and wide receivers in the first 8 rounds. And then see how your team looks. Because I guarantee you, if you just go wide receiver and running back in the first 8 rounds, you're probably going to be in whatever order you pick them, right? If you go wide receiver 1st round, running back 1st round, running back first 2 rounds, whatever, wide receiver first 2 rounds, whatever it is. You come out of the first 8 rounds with running backs and wide receivers in best ball, and then you cobble together the 2 quarterbacks or 3 quarterbacks that you want to use. You find yourself a tight end that's going to get you some amount of volume, or at least should see an uptick in volume. You're going to like the way that those teams look. Obviously, for the sake of this video, I went a little bit of a different route, going with Kelce in the 1st round, which was my plan to come out of this with either Kelce or Tyreek Hill. I don't think there's any way you come out of any draft with both of them. And if you do, you're not getting Mahomes either. Both would have to fall to 12. Right? None of them would go in the first 11 picks, and you luck box getting both at 12 and 13 if you're picking in the 12 spot. Devonta Smith going here. His ADP is 76.4. He went as the 61st pick in this draft to Gator Tom. Kenny Golladay going at the beginning of the 6th round. So it's interesting to see that Golladay, who has an ADP of 49 in all the drafts, up to this morning when they updated, went 62nd in this one. I'm going to assume it's because of the Stafford Goff trade that his ADP is going to fall, something that I mentioned on that Stafford to LA video that we did on the channel, on top of he could be somewhere else. We'll see what else he do. Myles Gaskin going at 6'4". If he is still their guy, I was kind of hoping that he would fall to me in this spot. He didn't. Deshaun Watson at 6'5". Like I said, this is where those middle round quarterbacks start to go. Aaron Rodgers at 6'6". People picking their primary guy in this round. It's dangerous to take quarterback where I took one with Patrick Mahomes early. Like I said, I like to wait, and especially like to wait to build out stacks. It's going to be interesting to see where somebody like Cortland Sutton goes. Tyler Boyd from Cincinnati there. Dak Prescott going to OT Josh, who has Amari Cooper, so he's building out that stack. Derrick Henry, DeAndre Swift, Michael Thomas, Amari Cooper, Dak Prescott, Mark Andrews. Pretty damn good starting lineup. Coming up on my pick here very soon. Running backs that are still available: Melvin Gordon, Kenyon Drake, Javonte Williams, Raheem Mostert, Ronald Jones, David Johnson. There's a lot of guys out there. For me, in this spot at 6'11", Jamar Chase is a stud. We know that he's going to go somewhere, but I'm going to go with Will Fuller. I'm going to take the known commodity here. I think that Chase is very good, but I tend not to lean on rookie quarterbacks, especially not in the first 6 rounds. I'll wait and I'll get somebody a little bit later. They'll shake out when we get guys that fall into spots throughout this draft. And I think that wide receiver is very deep in this draft, though it's going to come down to whether people have Smith or Chase as their pre-draft number 1 guy, or however else they're going to fill out their draft board. But those 2 guys are definitely 1, 2 in whatever order that you have them. And the argument that people are going to make is that as good as Justin Jefferson did, Jamar Chase grades out as a prospect much better than Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson landed in exactly the right spot. And rumors of him not being able to grasp the playbook at the beginning of the season and not get on the field the first couple of weeks, that didn't last, as he turned out to be amazing as the season went on, breaking a ton of records. Now, here's one spot that I'm going to reach a little bit. ADP of 82. I think that Javonte Williams, if he lands in the right spot, could be a league-winning type running back. He is the 3rd running back off the board in the draft. It projects to be the 3rd running back. Should get drafted mid-2nd, maybe early 3rd round from UNC. I think that he is an absolute stud. So I'm going to take him a little bit of ADP because I don't think he's going to make it back to me on the wrap when we get to the 8th round. So I'm going to lock in him as my 2nd running back in the 7th round, hoping to get some upside in that spot. Really shifty dude, breaks a lot of tackles, good speed. I'm not really high on this running back class, but if he lands in the right spot where he projects to get, let's say, 250 touches, 225 to 250 touches, I think he can do some things. But we'll have to see. This is a draft we're doing before the NFL draft, so you're gonna have to take some leaps of faith if you're going to be drafting rookies, and we know how rookies do. This is an 18-round draft. Let me get to a couple of questions from chat if I see any. Do quarterbacks go early in best ball as people want to ensure their stacks? It depends. Depending on where you draft and how you decide to pick, some people will reach on a quarterback by maybe a round to make sure that they get their guy. I've seen people take quarterbacks to block, which I think is personally silly. I think you should be drafting your team and not drafting somebody else's team, or drafting to block somebody else's team. That leaves you with a island of misfit toys, so to speak. And I'd prefer to just focus on my team and make sure that I get the things that I want. There goes Chase to BPV at 7.8. TJ Hawkinson going at 7.9. Looking at the top remaining wide receivers: Deebo Samuel, Brandon Cooks. Okay, not Brandon Cooks anymore. He just went. Jerry Jeudy from Denver entering his 2nd year. Robbie Anderson had a great year. Devontae Parker on what could be an improved Miami offense. ADP of 95. Jarvis Landry, who did very well, 95.5. Curtis Samuel, 106. Jalen Waddle, the rookie, who played on a broken leg in the championship game, at 109. Antonio Brown. Corey Davis, who was PFF's number 2 wide receiver on the season, at 112. There is so much talent that's still available on the board. Looking at the running backs: Ronald Jones, Chase Edmonds, Zach Moss, Leonard Fournette, Uncle Lenny, Jeff Wilson, Harris, Pollard. So running back does kind of fall off, as you can see, once we get to about the 7th, 8th round. I still think that it's like, if I don't go Mahomes and Kelsey, right, and making sure that I get a primary running back if I draft in the first half of the 1st round, get another one in the 3rd round and another one in the 5th round, I think is going to be probably my preferred strategy as we move through draft season this year. but I like to do things differently for the videos, you know, like I'm not hiding anything. I'm telling you everything that I think, but like I like to have different looking teams or do things that are a little bit off the reservation. If you remember the wide receiver draft I did last year, I came up with like the 11th or 12th pick in the draft that we did on stream, the best ball draft we did on stream, and I went with a 0 RB sort of look where I ended up with like Antonio Gibson, like the 7th or 8th round. I think I picked in the first 2 rounds, I had Devontae Adams and Julio Jones, and the replies just murdered me. You guys were killing me in the comments. Oh, 0 RB doesn't work. Oh, Devontae Adams, what a bust. It's going to be a terrible pick. I think I finished 2nd or 3rd in that league, so I got money out of that one. Not to pat myself on the back. I'm just saying, don't look at best ball teams and say your running backs aren't good enough. Or if somebody goes robust running back, your wide receivers aren't good enough. That's lazy analysis. You have to kind of think about things slightly differently when it comes to best ball. You kind of have to cover yourself. You want to have a correlated team. You want to make decisions that are best for your team as opposed to decisions that might work for everybody. So Tunyon goes at 8-6. Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams, Robert Tunyon. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Full GB stack. If they score 40 points, he's going to have a good week. Ronald Jones, Zach Moss. I don't really dig the running backs on Buffalo. Our running backs could be a little bit rough in this draft by the time it all shakes out. I think Jarvis Landry's solid, and I think that he's going to score more than 3 touchdowns next year. Obviously, a running first team, but getting a solid floor of players here in the passing game with CeeDee Lamb, DJ Moore, Will Fuller, and now Jarvis Purple Hair Landry. How important is the stack in a 12-person league versus a tournament league? In a tournament league, in a single sit-and-go league, it's important, but not 100% necessary, right? You can do it. You can win with it. You can win without it. To win a tournament, much like DFS, you kind of have to be willing to put, you know, like if you want to win all the eggs, you got to kind of put all your eggs in that one basket. So kind of, it's hard enough to predict defense from one week to the next. I'd rather stack up just good offenses and go with them. But like coming down the stretch this year, it was a lot of it was defined with, did you have Derrick Henry? Did you have David Montgomery? And then did you have the stacks that did well in weeks 14, 15, and 16 around that core of running backs? Trevor Lawrence going at 9-1. Uncle Lenny, no real great running backs in this spot. I'm just going to keep picking wide receivers. Pittman could take a leap forward, especially with a different quarterback. Curtis Samuel, somebody that you guys know that I really like. I'm going to go with Pittman in this spot. I like the talent. I like the size. I like that they started going to him in the red zone and around the end zone. And I typically tend to lean a lot on second-year wide receivers. Second and third year wide receivers in my draft philosophy. It's just the way that I go about things. They do tend to take a big leap. How many running backs and wide receivers start each week? 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, and 1 flex. No defenses or kickers on Underdog Fantasy. So it comes down to kind of what you want to do and what you are willing to do. Curtis Samuel going there at 9-4 to Parking Martian. Tight ends that are still available. Logan Thomas, who ended the year extremely well, led the league in terms of routes per quarterback dropback. And if they get better quarterback play, or let's say more aggressive quarterback play, if they have a more talented quarterback, all apologies to Alex Smith, but he's just not a difference maker and elevator at the position right now. If they do come out of this quarterback carousel this offseason with somebody, it'll be interesting to see where he goes. Evan Ingram could get cut, might not get cut. We'll have to wait and see what the Giants want to do, and it could come down to Kyle Pitts and where he goes. Cole Kmet, ADP of 149, really came on late in the season. Tyler Higbee for the Rams at 141, especially if Gerald Everett does not come back. Hayden Hurst had himself a really solid year with 56 catches and 6 touchdowns. Jonnu Smith, big athleticism, but has not really turned that into a lot of targets. Volume is king. Touchdowns are a little bit more random than people are willing to admit. Jalen Reagor, 9.9. Waddle went at 9.7. Stafford still says Detroit, but we know that he's on the Rams. Stafford, did he have a stack here? He did not. Take a look really quick at what running backs are left. Moss, ADP of 199. Leonard Fournette, 104. Damian Harris, 107. Tony Pollard, 111. God, they're paying Ezekiel Elliott a lot of money. James Conner, we'll have to see where he ends up, because they might draft a rookie running back in that spot. Like, most teams aren't going to take a running back in the first round. They might. The Steelers might. And if not, probably going to come out of round 2 or 3 with a running back that they think might take over. Kylan Hill, interesting, with an ADP of 165. Darrell Henderson, if you believe that, Cam Akers, the ADP gap is something that we do want to talk about. So, like, ADP gap on running backs. Running back is a highly volatile position, not unlike closers in fantasy baseball, right? Where, like, it's got like a 40% plus fail rate, meaning that the player that you select in the first round, the player that starts the season, is not necessarily going to be the starter at the end of the season 40% or more percent of the time. So the guy that's the week 1 starter might not be the starter by the end of the season, might not be the starter by week 7, by week 5. So the ADP gap on somebody like Cam Akers, who has an ADP from I think he's like 13 through 16. He's somewhere in that range right now. He's like early second round ADP, as opposed to Henderson with an ADP of 176. The 0 RB drafters are going to tell you that the better value is the guy with, if you're drafting as your RB4 or RB5, that you're drafting way later, is the guy that has a much better opportunity for you to cash in while locking in talent at tight end, locking in talent at wide receiver. How important are running back handcuffs? I don't handcuff, especially, transactional leagues are different. So if you have a league where you can pick up and drop and do whatever, and you're drafting early and you want to make sure you have the running backs, so you draft the team running backs from those spots. Best ball, you don't want to do that. You want to have as many bites at the apple as possible. And you don't want to lock down and say, well, if this guy's the starter, this other guy that I have is probably not going to be. Martian, you sniped me again. I was going to get Fournette in that spot. You don't want to lock down spots saying, well, I'm going to draft a backup in this spot to the guy that I already have. So, like, if I have J.K. Dobbins, I'm probably not going to draft Gus Edwards saying, well, if one of them gets hurt, then I've got the other guy. I can't drop these guys. I can't pick anybody else up. So you want to have as many bites at the apple as you possibly can get, meaning that I don't want to draft somebody's backup in this spot. As I mentioned, I think that James Conner might be moving on here, but I'm going to take him just because I need a running back. I was hoping that it was going to be Leonard Fournette, which is a weird thing for me to say. But again, the risk here is extremely low drafting my RB3, RB4, in these spots, right? The 120th overall picks. The risk is somewhat low, or at least lower than where it would be if you drafted, 5th, 6th, 7th round type guys. So, like, I filled out my wide receivers with guys that I liked. Tom Brady going in the 10th round there. He drafted one of them, didn't he? Yeah, he's got Godwin, Ronald Jones, kind of a buck stack. Or Chase family. I also don't have to spend a lot of equity on a second quarterback. You've been sniped like 6 times, Dave? Yeah, it happens. And again, I'm drafting this with my community. There was one guy sitting in the lobby. Brady and Kirk Cousins. Drafting his 3rd quarterback there. I'm going to take Nyheim Hines. I do think that they're going to get a a lot of use, let's say, out of Jonathan Taylor. But again, ADP gap. So somebody with a mid first round ADP, as opposed to drafting his backup, who will have a role, right? Nyheim Hines will have a role on that Colts team in 2021, with Taylor being the lead guy, assuming that they're all still there. He'll still have a role and can contribute in a best ball sense. I don't have to pick which weeks to start him. That's the other thing that you have to change your thinking if you're drafting best ball. And as I said, I suggest using cheap best ball leagues as your mock drafts, as opposed to just doing mock drafts more realistically. So you get more realistic ends. Every single team is still engaged in this draft in the middle of the 11th round. You'll never see a mock draft with every team being engaged in the 11th round. It's just not a real thing. So drafting a running back that already has a role, and then in case of emergency becomes the guy who should get 15 plus touches a game. Again, there's a lot more safety in that. And I'm going to be leaning on my wide receivers and my Mahomes to Kelsey stack more than other things that are going to be out there. Looking at the remaining tight ends, we already did that. Looking at the remaining quarterbacks. So we're past this. So Baker Mayfield already passed his ADP. Matt Ryan, Justin Fields, going to be interesting to see what he does as a rookie, or if he starts early. I think that the Lions might draft a quarterback, and if Fields falls to that spot, he would probably end up being a backup for his first year, as opposed to being a starter for his first year. Derek Carr, Tua, Daniel Jones, Ben Roethlisberger at 153, Zach Wilson, who I don't think is going to be a backup, will probably start all of his games as a rookie. Taysom Hill, Jared Goff. We still don't know who the New Orleans quarterback is going to be, whether it's going to be Taysom Hill, whether it's going to be Jameis or somebody else. So again, taking chances on guys early in these very early, way too early drafts is going to be interesting. Cole Beasley going at 12-1. Also, Jamal Williams, same situation, right? We know he has a locked-in role on that team, whether or not Aaron Jones is there or Aaron Jones is not there. His role is sufficient on that particular team. Matt Ryan, is this a stack? It is. Julio Jones to go with Matt Ryan. Lamar Jackson, no stack, but not needed with a rushing quarterback. I think if you have a running quarterback, because he is a running quarterback getting 10 rushes per game, I don't know that you need to stack them. But again, if you're trying to win all of the eggs, and this is a sit and go standalone league, not one of the tournament leagues that they offer, like you see on DraftKings, like you see on Underdog, where there's a big prize pool. You have to advance to the playoffs after like 12 or 13 weeks, and then advance through each of those weeks, win your group or come in second in your group to get to the next week. Thoughts on AJ Dillon if Jones leaves? I don't like him if Jones is there. I do like him if Jones is gone. He's a walking if-then statement. So if you have intel and you believe that, look, Aaron Jones, they are definitely not going to pay Aaron Jones. They can't afford to pay Aaron Jones. They're going to let Aaron Jones go, no matter if it pisses off Aaron Rodgers or not. And they're going to go with Dillon as the 1A with him and Williams, the same way that they've been using Jones and Williams in the last couple of years, with him being the inside the 5 guy. There's upside to that on a very good offense where he's going to get 10 plus touches a week, and the high leverage ones on top of that. There's definite value there. Antonio Brown still the highest wide receiver remaining. Sterling Shepard, Darnell Mooney, Gabriel Davis, Nelson Aguilar, T.Y. Hilton, Lazard, MVS, John Brown, Russ Gage. A lot of wide receivers with volume still available. Right? Not just wide receivers who are names. Wide receivers with volume. And one thing I'm not doing, I'm not paying attention to bye weeks. Because again, way too early. I'm doing this as an exercise. I appreciate you guys watching the video. I'm sure you hate my team. That's the one constant on YouTube. No matter what team I draft, YouTube always hates the team. The worst. It's the worst team. How could you draft that team? It's The worst team I've ever seen. I'm going to go tight end in this spot. I'm going to take Austin Hooper. Chase family only has 3 wide receivers. Godwin, Smith, Schuster, and Cortland Sutton coming off of his leg injury. Now, I'll typically come out of these 18-round leagues with 2 quarterbacks, maybe. Oh, sorry, I'll probably end up with 3 quarterbacks, 5 wide receivers. What is it? 8 wide. Sorry. 3, 5, 8, 2 is usually how I end up. Antonio Brown going at the end of the 12th round.
He's a legend.
Captain Morgan, thank you for the 17 months, man. Gainwell, Fields, Daniel Jones, Roethlisberger. God, Taysom Hill. I'm going to go with Shepard in this spot. Too much volume to ignore down the stretch. If they draft a wide receiver, I still think that he's got a role on that team. If they get rid of Ingram, I think they keep Shepard. If they get rid of Tate, I think they keep Shepard. Too much volume to ignore at this spot. Winston will probably be a steal. If he's a starter, sure. It's going to be interesting to see where guys end up. McKissick going at 13-4. If he has the same role in 2021 that he had in 2020, he's going to be an absolute steal. I personally think that Gibson's going to become more of a workhorse in year 2 than he was in year 1. But again, things remain to be seen. Nelson Aguilar, the guy who didn't drop anything. Wonder what his ADP is for Winston? He's got to be like super late. 189. MVS. Houston is the one with Rodgers, right? Yeah, it's a full Green Bay everything. Packers every week. Irv Smith. I'm not laughing at Irv Smith. I'm laughing at chat. T.Y. Hilton at 13 looks like it could be a solid deal. Deadhead Dave seems like he's getting sniped. He's in chat. God damn it. I hate you all. So generally speaking, Justin Fields has been going somewhat early. Players tend to, best ball players, I mean, tend to take chances on rookie quarterbacks. Don't really need to stack if it isn't in the big tournament. You don't need to, but it doesn't hurt. I mean, if you can get every piece from a really good offense team that you think is going to score 30 points a game, you're getting all those touchdowns. Dawson Knox for Gator Tom and Daniel Jones at the 13-14 turn. And then I missed my pick. So you took Justin Fields on auto pick? You got to queue your players up, man. 30-second draft clock goes very, very fast. The 30-second draft clock goes extremely, extremely fast. The Gus Bus. Lifelong Bucks fans seeing so many bums at QB. It's absurd to me that Jameis isn't a starter somewhere. Yes. Jameis should be a starter. I agree. Oh, you had 4 guys queued up and all 4 of your guys went in a row? Ah. Zach Ertz. Interesting. His 3rd tight end. There's no right way or wrong way to go about your player allocations in best ball. It's kind of a salt to taste issue. Some people only draft 2 quarterbacks. Some people draft, 7 running backs. They want to cover for, well, if the guy gets injured, they want to make sure. For me, you only need 2 running backs to start on an every week basis. There's 2 solid running back spots. So you have 3 wide receiver spots that need to be taken. That's why I draft more wide receivers than running backs. Even though it's a less fragile position. And you have 1 flex. So if you have 4 superstar, if you draft 4 running backs in the first 3 rounds saying, well, if one of them gets hurt, I'm going to be super covered. You really only need to start 2. The other reason that a lot of people go 0 RB in these best ball drafts, you really only have to cover 2. And it's hard to, running backs is a hard position where the other positions are a little bit easier to project volume than not. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, I am going to take Darrell Henderson in this spot. That'll fill out my running backs. Dobbins, Williams, Connor, Hines, Henderson. I know you guys hate it because I didn't take 3 running backs in the first 3 rounds, so your running backs look ugly. It is what it is. I went with a different approach in this draft, going with the premium Patrick Mahomes to Kelsey stack because we know what that is. Filling out most things with with wide receivers, talented volume wide receivers to give me a really good floor with a possibility of ceilings for many of them, as we've seen from Fuller and Lamb and more. Floor guys like Landry and Shepard, I'm expecting a jump from Pittman at least versus his ADP. And if I can get 2 solid-ish games out of my running backs per week, I can very easily come out of this well. Now, if you're going 0 RB, sorry, my cord's getting stuck. If you go 0 RB and you can end up with if you want to end up picking a 6th wide receiver, I'm not against that. I'm going to take a chance here that Taysom Hill is going to be the starter in New Orleans. He may not be. This could hurt, right? I'm going to draft a 3rd running back. But if Taysom Hill is the starter in New Orleans, with the rushing floor, the touchdown upside, and everything else that he had, and they did not look terrible with him at quarterback this year. Like, I was one of the people that was not pleased that it wasn't going to be Winston. But Taysom Hill looked good enough at starter that if they choose to go that route, that he can put up numbers. Probably a more talented Tim Tebow from a fantasy perspective, right? Like, he can throw for 250 to 320 yards in a game. He can run for a touchdown or 2. He'll run the ball 10 times a game if he's their starting quarterback, which gives me a really solid floor in the 15th round. If he is named the starter, you're not going to get him in the 15th round. That's just not going to happen. There's a distinct possibility he's not, which is why I'm going to have to draft another quarterback in this draft. But I can wait and do that super late because, again, it just kind of is what it is. Quarterbacks that are left: Carson Wentz, Trey Lance, Drew Lock, Sam Darnold, Teddy Bridgewater, Mac Jones, Cam Newton, Mitch Trubisky, Kyle Trask. If Fitzmagic has a starting job somewhere, Phillip Rivers needs to be removed from the player pool. So does Drew Brees. Lazard to Gator Tom. Winston to Thomas, could be. Coming up on the tail end of this draft, round 16, 17, and 18. Jacoby Myers. Every time I see the name Jacoby Myers, I just think of the law firm in Los Angeles. Running backs that are left: Kylan Hill, Ramondre. Damn it. It's a tongue twister for me. Ramondre Stevenson, LaMichael P. Ryan, Mike Davis, Keyshawn Vaughn, Javian Hawkins, Marlon Mack, Anthony McFarland, Darrington Evans, Benny Snell, Lev Bell, James White, DJ Dallas. Just a bunch of dudes. It's bunch of dudes season at running back. At wide receiver, Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis. Yeah, the law firm of Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis. Preston Williams coming off of his injury, returning to Miami next season. The venerable one at this point, Emmanuel Sanders, James Washington, a couple of rookies, Tyler Johnson, Traquan, Tim Patrick, Rashard Higgins, AJ Green, still available, ADP of 210. Keelan Cole, Jalen Guyton, Cam Sims, who did extremely well down the stretch. Lots of targets for him. Colin Johnson for Jacksonville, a draft Twitter favorite from last season. Coming up on my pick here in a second. Drew Lock going to Parking Martian at 16.9. Mac Jones going at 16.10. Let's see. I'm gonna fill out wide receiver here. Cephas. I'm gonna go with James Washington in this spot. My wide receivers basically now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm probably going to end up drafting one more wide receiver. I might draft a running back. Typically, my breakdown is 3, 5, 8, and 2. But because of the different nature that I went with this team, I may go a different route. Also, I'm drafting against people that are watching me live drafting, so I kind of have to zig a little bit where they think I should zag. Jay Wash is a great late pick. Juju on his way to the door. We shall see. I'm not watching you. 2 picks left. I'm going to go with Sam Darnold late. If the Jets keep him, and there's a question of whether or not they're going to keep him, I believe that Sam Darnold will be a starter somewhere in the National Football League in 2021. Whether it's with the Jets or somewhere else. And again, this is a way too early draft. If he stays with the Jets, they're going to have a lot of picks. If they make a trade with Houston, he may go to Houston as a part of that deal, not unlike Goff going to Detroit. Or they may have to make a third deal or include a third team to ship him off somewhere else. But I still believe that there are enough holes and that Darnold is more talented than other quarterbacks in the league who have starting jobs, that somebody will view him as an upgrade and give him a starting job in 2021. So as a 17th round pick, there's very little risk here, especially as I'm drafting him behind Patrick Mahomes and the possibility of Taysom Hill as a starter himself, that if he's not, and it's a wasted pick, then so be it. This leaves me with the ability to take a 6th running back or an 8th wide receiver, although I think my wide receiver core is pretty solid. Travis Kelce, Austin Hooper. I'll probably end up taking a flyer on a running back in the last round with the second to last, pick in the draft. Jay Shan asks, Fournette 1-year deal, Vaughn hype for next season. It depends. Tom Brady is somewhat, Tom Brady is the quarterback and in the front office. So while I like Keyshawn Vaughn, if he's the guy, all I care about at running back is, are they going to get touches? Right? So Tom Brady advocated for Leonard Fournette. And so the Bucs went out and got Leonard Fournette. And Ronald Jones looks more explosive. When he touches the ball, he just seems to make things happen. Like when he was getting 20 touches a game, he was making things happen in the middle chunk of the season. But he drops balls out of the backfield and he fumbles a few times. And Tom Brady does not stand for that. And so therefore, he basically relegated him to the bench and said, Leonard's the way that we're going to go. So if Brady says, you know what, I don't trust Rojo and I don't trust Keyshawn Vaughn, then Leonard Fournette might be back next season. And again, we'll have to wait and see. So we're finishing up now in the 18th round. The other Hollywood Higgins going at 18-1. Keelan Cole. Let's see what's left here. Whole lot of ifs at running back. Sony Michel going undrafted in most leagues. Wide receiver. Edwards, Wallace, Johnson, AJ Green, available in the 18th round, could be dust. Cam Sims, solid volume last year. Kiki Kuti, Zach Pascal, Travis Fulgham, whatever happened to John Ross, Demarcus Robinson, Deontay Harris had a couple of good weeks. Josh Reynolds had a really good run there for the Rams for a few weeks. Will the Rams bring in another wide receiver, whether it's going to be somebody like Will Fuller, whether it's going to be somebody like MJ Jr.? Trey Lance going at 18-5. I don't know that he starts this year, but he could. If he gets picked by a team, it just will throw him in there. Looks like a draft and stash guy at the NFL level. Like, pick him when you've got a guy in front of him. A team like the Lions could definitely take him at 7 and just say, we're going to start Goff this year and then work you in as a second-year guy. Miles Boykin, kind of interesting there. Freddie Swain, Byron Pringle. Not going to be popping into a can on this pick. Tight ends that are still available in 18. OJ Howard, the milk carton himself. Dalton Schultz. Parham is interesting. Njoku, Brait. On to me for my last pick. I am going to take Keyshawn Vaughn. To me, this spot was between Keyshawn Vaughn and then I don't see the other guy because somebody took him. It was right there. It was Darrington Evans, who Racing Prez took there. As I said, one play away from being the guy in Tennessee. You kind of want to take those guys late in these drafts. So I'm going to pick a 6th running back, knowing that my running backs weren't, that I didn't spend a lot of draft capital on the running backs. You can easily wait on quarterbacks in these drafts. I chose to go with Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes as the premium stack, ending with a 3-6-7-2 roster build. This is a best ball draft. No transactions whatsoever throughout the season. Projected at 2677. The rookies usually projected a lot lower based on their just what they use for them. Patrick Mahomes, Taysom Hill, Sam Darnold, based on their projections, especially pre-draft. J.K. Dobbins, Javonte Williams, who I admittedly am higher on in ADP versus a field. I think that if he is drafted by a specific team or team, some combination where he gets to be the lead guy, is probably going to move up to like the 4th or 5th round. And I think he's being underdrafted right now in pre-draft drafts. James Conner, Nyheim Hines, Darrell Henderson, Keyshawn Vaughn, kind of a 0 RB approach with CeeDee Lamb, DJ Moore, Will Fuller, Jarvis Landry, Michael Pittman, Sterling Shepard, James Washington's wide receivers, and Travis Kelce, who I reached for in round 1 over any of the superstar running backs. Hope you guys liked the video. Look out for another one right there.
He's a legend.